The Prime Minister has been banned from entering Russia.
Yeah, Moscow says it's retaliation to UK sanctions imposed since Russia invaded Ukraine.
Now, the ban also extends to other senior ministers, including the Foreign Secretary.
So for more on this and the plight facing our Prime Minister at the moment, David Maddox is political editor of the Sunday Express and joins us now. Thanks for making it in. It's one good thing about driving this early in the morning is there isn't an awful lot of traffic on the road.
It's lovely and empty and, get to see the sights of London without queuing for hours.
So Putin doesn't like Boris Johnson at the moment and have actually banned him.
Yes. Well, this is actually great news for the Prime Minister because it's yet another reminder that he gets the big things right. You know, with all the Partygate stuff around him, all the concerns about the local elections in his party, you know, he is the world's leading figure in this Ukraine crisis. And it's been recognised by President Zelensky in Ukraine. It's now obviously recognised by Putin as well, which is why he's singled out, well, he hasn't singled out the British... Made a point of it. He'd actually named Boris as the greatest enemy for Russia a few weeks ago anyway. Even David Petraeus, the US general, was writing the other day that Britain has been doing more than any other country in terms of sanctions, in terms of weapons to Ukraine and all the rest of it. So, yeah, this is great news for Boris, and actually it shows his leadership qualities at a time when other things have been questioned about.
Well, I was going to say, because you haven't got great news for Boris or for Rishi Sunak in a poll in your paper this morning.
No. So we have a partnership with a Italian company called Techni, polling company called Techni, and they did a poll for us at the end of last week, which showed that 55% want them to resign as a result of the fines that they received.
Only 10% of Conservative voters.
Well, that's the good news for them, because only 10% of Conservative voters and 39% of Leave voters. So it shows that the core vote for Boris and for Rishi, actually, Rishi has other problems, obviously, with some of the tax issues around his wife. But it's actually holding up for them very well.
At the moment, Boris, I think, Johnson has announced that there will be an investigation into Rishi Sunak and his tax affairs and his wife's tax affairs. But there are some newspapers suggesting this morning that that's sort of being pushed into the long grass.
There is a feeling that is happening. But, I mean, there's been questions all week about whether Rishi Sunak's actually going to stay in his job.
What do you think? Does he want to stay there anymore?
My feeling is that, as he's not resigned yet, but he probably does want to stay there, actually, and he's made the decision that he doesn't want to quit. I think it probably got quite close last week, certainly with a fine, which I think, in his case, he felt was very unfair because he literally walked into a room expecting a meeting and was presented with cake. So it's...
someone else who was ambushed by
Indeed,
cake.
yes, indeed. Yeah, probably more so than the Prime Minister, though. So, you know.
It's interesting in your poll, though, that, I mean, although it's the initial headline is grim reading for the PM, 55% thinking he should go, but if this is being... How do we read it if it's then, as it seems to be, drawn pretty much on political lines?
It is, very much so. I mean, as we were saying, only 1 in 10 Conservative voters actually think he should go.
Which suggests he's absolutely safe.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, for now, but I wonder how does that play in terms of...
I think that would be even more so with the membership of the party, and because that's Conservative voters. With a membership, he's still very popular amongst the grassroots.
OK, why?
Well, I think because he's a charismatic leader, he still has cut through in areas like the kind of former Labour Red Wall areas. He still can make, as we were talking about with Ukraine, he's good with the big decisions. He was good with the big decisions during the pandemic. He was good with the big decisions over Ukraine, and of course, for Conservative voters, because most of them are now Brexiteers and Leavers, in their view, he got Brexit right.
This poll, you said, was end of last week. Do you think it could change significantly over the Rwanda issue? Because look, it's being slated by a lot of people. The Archbishop of Canterbury, as we're saying this morning, not very happy. a lot of people, the vast majority of people who get in touch with us, very much for it. It would seem to be something which the public are saying they're behind.
Yes, I think it will change things actually, and certainly the Conservative MPs, the briefings I received at the end of last week, are delighted about it. They're saying actually on the ground, and again, especially in those kind of northern and Midland seats, which they won off Labour, on the ground, it's really working well for them because they were actually in danger of losing their seats on this issue because of the essentially broken asylum system. And, you know, the people who dislike it are, I'm afraid, the obvious people. They're the people who don't like the Conservative government anyway.
So they're not traditional Conservative.
I mean, including the Archbishop, I'm afraid. They're the what we would have called the Remainer crowd a few years ago. And that's
Is it cynically designed, though, to help the Tories through the May elections? And then, after all, you can spend some time tweaking at it to ameliorate the others?
No, this has been in the pipeline for a long time. And, I mean, there's been a lot of hard work on this. And, you know, in the end, they had to break the business model of the people traffickers. And actually, it was immoral not to do something. I mean, you know, it's
so many critics saying it just won't work.
Well, the issue why it might not work is because, lawyers may be challenging it in the courts, and we've still got to get through the Human Rights Act hurdle and the Refugee Convention hurdle. So the international law, which we're signed up to, may be the biggest problem for it.
And what do you think, sorry, just to ask, what will Number 10 think of what the Archbishop of Canterbury is going to be saying in his sermon?
I would imagine they're not particularly happy, but I would also imagine they're not particularly surprised either. So.
OK.